My name is Shami and I'm going to be taking you through how to draw line art for your portraits in a straight-on view. We're going to take this step by step, starting with finding a reference, constructing the head using the Loomis method, drawing the rough facial features using the Reilly rhythms, drawing the sketch using the Asaro head, and then finally drawing the line art and adding line weight and details. This can work with both digital or traditional. However, if you're using traditional, I suggest you do the first 3 steps lightly so when we get to drawing the line art, you won't have to erase too much. Okay, let's get started. Step 1. Finding a reference. When looking for a reference for a portrait, here are some useful tips to follow. This is rather obvious, but choose one where all the facial features are clear and well defined. Don't choose any where parts of it is hidden in shadow or with excessive jewelry and drapery. Go for a grayscale rather than a color. This will help you see the shadows clearly, which will make adding the line weight easier in the end. Or you can always make the image grayscale if you're using a digital program. Step 2. Constructing the head using the Loomis method. So now that we have a reference, let's start drawing. The Loomis method of drawing heads is famous for being easy to understand and even easier to use. First, draw a circle which will represent the main mass of the head encompassing this area. Draw 2 ellipses to represent the flattening of the head at the sides. You're essentially slicing off a section of the sphere. Then divide the sphere horizontally and vertically. When drawing the lines on the sphere at an angle, remember the sphere is a round object, and you need to follow the contour of the sphere. In this case, we're facing the sphere head-on, so we will only see the horizontal line, since the vertical division will be right on the edge. If it was at an angle like this, then we will see the vertical division. The horizontal line will represent the eyebrows, and the intersection between the vertical line and the ellipses will represent the jawline. At this point, we draw the outline for the jaw. Depending on the reference you choose, the jaw may be small and round, pointy and sharp, or angular and well-defined. That's it for the Loomis head. Now all we have to do is point to the different landmarks we've created to help guide us when we're putting in our facial features. Here are the features we know already. The eyebrow line is here and the jawline is here. If we divide our face in thirds, 1/3 is the eyebrow line, 2/3 is the bottom of the nose, and the last third is the bottom of the chin. If we divide the top third into thirds again, then the top third will be the hairline. Okay, last landmark. We finally have the ear from the brow line to the bottom of the nose. That's it for the Loomis head. We now have a solid foundation for our portrait. If you want, feel free to pause the video and draw the head for your reference. Or if not, let's go on to the next step, the Reilly rhythms. Step 3. Drawing the Reilly rhythms. The Reilly rhythms is an excellent guideline for the individual facial features and allows you to study the different sections of your reference. Here's where it gets a little bit complicated, but we're going to do this step by step. Let's begin with the forehead circle to represent this area. Then the brow line connecting to the eyebrow line. This area is the little protrusion above the eyebrows. Fun fact, it's called the supraorbital ridge. Now we're going to draw shapes for the eyes. Draw 2 circles to represent where the eyeballs would be. And now you can draw a sort of sunglass shape around them connecting to the sides. The nose will be a bridge down the middle with a little box representing the base of the nose where the nostrils will be. Draw an ellipse around the nose to signify its side planes. Now we can draw a small circle at the bottom to represent the chin. For the mouth, we make another circle from the bridge of the nose to the top of the chin circle. To establish where the mouth exactly falls, the corner will line up with the vertical division of the eyeball and with a line connecting it to the edge of the ear. We're almost there. Draw another line connecting the helix of the ear, which is the flap that curves around at the top, all the way down to the chin. This should be a nice, smooth diagonal line. Okay, last line connecting the corners of the eyes at the top around into the line we just drew. This represents the laugh line, which becomes obvious when we smile or in elderly people. Our Reilly face is finished, and now comes the fun part. Step 4. Drawing the sketch. When sketching, it's important to be intentional with your lines and not make scratchy lines or overdraw the same line. We want clarity in our sketch in order to take it to our final stage. Use the underlying guidelines we've established to sketch in the facial features according to your reference. An excellent help when sketching is the Asaro head. The Asaro head shows the different planes of the face, and it's important to find where these planes are in your reference. A plane is merely a section of the object that has a change in angle from the sections around it. Each angle change can be represented with lines in order to add depth and realism to your drawing. Let me show you an example. Let's start with the eye. Here in the Asaro head, The eye is basically a ball with two lids around it. Each lid has an outer surface and an inner surface, and a plane connecting the two here. Therefore, we should draw a line for each of those plane changes. You can always simplify it later on, but it's important you understand what you're simplifying, so if you ever want to remove the simplification, you can. Using this logic, we will now sketch the rest of our reference with the Asawa head, trying to match the plane changes in our reference to the Asawa reference. Each plane change I see, I'm going to indicate with a line. So I thought to do a voiceover of my sketch so I can just talk as I'm drawing and explain everything that I'm doing. So I'm starting with the right eye, mostly because it's just my favorite thing to draw in the face. And I'm drawing a line for each plane change I see, like I showed in the eye example before. Moving on to the eyebrow, trying to get the basic shape down. I'm not concerned with like the individual hair strands I see, just want to get the shapes and the lines down. And then I'm moving on to the nose and then the other eye. Like for the most part, I'm following the Reilly rhythms that I see underneath. Because the Reilly rhythms is a foundation, it's a really nice template to follow. You can always make small changes in accordance with your reference. Like if the nose is bigger, you can draw the nose a little bigger. But the Reilly rhythms is a really nice template to follow. So I move on to the bottom of the nose. She has a nice, very cute round nose. So I'm trying to get those shapes right. And then I'm drawing the irises for the eyes, making sure that they're both looking in the same direction. And then onto the mouth. I noticed that her mouth is just a little bit thicker than the Reilly rhythm template that I have underneath. So I just draw them a little bit thicker. And then onto the other side of the face. If you can, keep a small picture of the Asawa head off to the side so you can constantly match the Asawa head reference with the reference that you're drawing off of. And here I mirror my sketch to kind of get a fresh perspective and see any mistakes I might have missed. It's very useful to do, and I do it pretty often when I'm drawing because it's just nice to get a fresh eye. And then I noticed that, it was a little bit slant and stuff, so I adjusted that. Now I'm on to the hairline. Again, not concerned with like each strand that I see. I just want to get a basic shape down. I try to keep my lines as clean as possible because I don't want to have to make too many decisions when I'm doing the line art. Because if I keep my lines clean in the sketch, I know that for my line art, this is where I'm going to draw the clean lines. When you draw messy lines, then you have to decipher, okay, where should the line exactly fall? So it's easier to make decisions when you're doing the sketch. And I'm moving on to the top of the head. I realized I drew a little bit big. I still think it's a little bit big. I think I adjust it later on. I'm just trying to get like a nice clean shape for the top of the head. And then I'm moving on to the bun. And here I draw a couple of the strands in. Really, I just got distracted and I was having fun with the sketch. So I was just drawing some hair in. And onto the neck now. So here I'm making some small changes because I realized that I drew the face a little bit longer. So, okay, I took off the guidelines I had underneath because I feel like I had enough of a foundation to go off of. So really, since most of the sketch is done, now is all about making minor changes, trying to match the proportions with the reference that I see. So I'm just moving the eyes around a little bit, mirroring my sketch again to see if I notice anything a little weird, and I realized the side of the head looked a little flat, so I'm just changing that shape. Still just looking to see if I see anything else I need to change. I noticed the side of the face is looking a little off, so I just want to make those two symmetrical, because when you're seeing the face straight on, the face is pretty symmetrical. It's easier to see in when I mirror the sketch because I see the face with like a whole new set of eyes almost. And adjusting the other ear because I thought it was too small before. And I mean, yeah, we're really coming close to the end with the sketch. Just small changes. Looking for any more things I can change and correct. Here I'm using the liquify tool to make some like proportional changes to the sketch. It's a really nice quick tool to use. So as I'm making these small changes, you can see that the sketch is getting closer and closer to the reference, because a lot of times it's the changes you make at the end that bring it a lot closer to who you're trying to draw. And then here I'm just drawing the plane I see between her cheekbone and her cheek. Just a small thin light line because I want a indication of it when I'm doing my line art. Oh, I took it back out. I might not. I must not have liked those lines. I'll probably put them in the line art. And then that's it for the sketch, really. We have a nice sketch to now do our line art. Step 5. Adding the line art. Here's probably going to be the most frustrating part, adding the line art. But it's also so satisfying to see in the end. If you're doing this traditionally, here's where you can lightly erase your underdrawing to make way for your shiny new line art. If you're doing this digitally, you can lower the opacity of your sketch and choose a different brush if you like. You can choose a textured brush or a plain default one. I tend to use the airbrush for my line art. After choosing a brush, we will go over our sketch in smooth, confident lines. Zoom out for long lines so you can draw it with a shorter stroke, and remember to not obsess over getting the perfect line. Aim for good enough rather than perfect. Okay, onto the line art for our sketch. So here I just draw I'm beginning with eye like I normally do. Remember not to obsess over getting the perfect line. Just try to get a good enough line rather than perfect. Just drawing a line for each plane change I see. So now I'm drawing the plane change for the upper eyelid and now the lower eyelid. And then onto the eyebrow. Now that I already decided my shapes before in the sketch, so it's really easy for me to just follow the lines I already have in the sketch. I'm really just trying to get nice smooth lines. I don't have to think too much when I'm doing my line art. And then just onto the nose. It's really just following the sketch you have underneath, trying to get clean lines. Drawing like the sides of the nostrils. I erased that line because I thought it wasn't at the right angle, so I just made it at a softer angle. I took the sketch off so I could just see the line art by itself and see how well it was matching up with the reference. So now I'm more satisfied with it. So I'm moving on to the mouth now. I zoom out just to get the overall look, because when you're zoomed in, it's easy to get caught up in the details and not remember the overall picture. So it's helpful to just zoom out and get a nice look every now and then. So I finished drawing the mouth and now I'm on to the side planes of the nose. And then just move the reference off to the other side so you can draw the other eye. Again, same thing as we did with the other eye, we're just drawing a line for each plane change that we see. I'm gonna say that so often you're gonna get sick of me saying the same thing. But it's really just that you just draw a line for every change in plane that you see, like how we did in the Asara hymn. Just drawing the iris and now the eyebrow. Now the lower eyelid. Just zooming out again just to get an overall look. And I realize I drew it on the wrong layer. So I'm just cutting it out and getting it on the right layer. Just finishing up the eye, trying to make it really clear that both eyes are looking off in the same direction. Because sometimes when you draw the pupils in, it looks kind of weird, like they're both looking off in two different directions. So it's important you try to get them equal. Just making, I'm still trying to get the eyes looking off into the same direction because it's just looking a little bit off to me. Just making small changes until I feel that it's right. So yeah, I think it's looking better. Taking out the sketch to see how the line art is looking so far. Yeah, so I added the plane change now between the cheek and the cheekbone. And now onto the chin. Just drawing a little circle for to show that there's a bump there for the chin. Then onto the side of the face. This line art video is, I think, at about 2 times speed. So I'm actually taking quite a bit of time with the line art. Just finishing off the neck. And now onto the hair. You can really see that I'm really just following the sketch lines I have underneath, which is why I really suggest you make most of your decisions in this sketch, because it's just easier to do the line art. So moving on to the other ear. And here's where I forget how to draw an ear because her ear is mostly in shadow. So I think I'll look up a reference later on so I can finish the ear. Zooming out again to get the overall look. Now I'm drawing the hair in. Again, just following the shape I already put down in my sketch. And then just finishing off her bun. I'm not really trying to match every strand perfectly with the reference. I'm just kind of having fun with hair. Drawing, just what I feel looks right. I'm trying to match, the flow in her hair to my line art. I'm not trying to draw every strand I see, just trying to get, the basic shapes and the basic flow in. Just putting some hair strands in there. Zooming out, taking out my sketch now. And so I'm just seeing the line art. So here I'm just adding more strands in, so it's easier to add the details later on. I'm just totally having fun with it. Hair is always the easiest subject to just have fun with. So here I'm just drawing the plane changes for her forehead and some circles for her cheekbones to show that those are bumps or like protrusions. And now I'm just looking around to see if there's any other changes I can make. So that's a sketch that I'm showing. And that's the line art. I'm just comparing the two. So now I'm just making small adjustments to my line art to see if there are any other changes I can do to make it look close to the reference. Here I'm mirroring the sketch again, and I'm realizing the eye is looking a little bit weird, so I'm adjusting it. Using the liquify tool here to finish adjusting the eyes. Eyes are always the hardest thing to get right, but it's just always so fun to draw. And yeah, just doing some minor small changes. I'm trying to make them I think I realized again that it wasn't looking in the same direction, so I'm just making that change again here. And yeah, like I think we're pretty much finished with the line art. Just these small changes. I'm just looking at both mirrored and unmirrored to see if it's looking okay both ways. Using the liquify tool to make some small changes. And here I'm changing the hole here, making a little bit higher. And I think that's it. I don't think I make any more changes. Yeah, that's it for our line art. Step 6, line weight and details. So here's the finished line art. It looks rather flat, doesn't it? Here's where we will now add line weight and shadow details to make our line drawing pop. There's several guidelines that we can follow. The bigger the plane change, the thicker the line. Meaning that if one plane is at a very different angle than the one beside it, we draw a thicker line. If the plane change is not that big, then we will draw a thinner line. You can kind of keep a scale in your head with different plane changes and different line thicknesses to help keep your drawing consistent. For example, the angle between the bridge of the nose and the side planes is sharp, so we draw a thick line. But the plane change for the protrusion above the eyebrow is small, so we draw a thin line. Outlines should be thicker lines. Basically, the extreme edges of your drawing tend to be thicker to help your portrait pop out a little bit. Ambient occlusions can be shaded. These are areas where no light can reach, the darkest shadows in your image. Examples of these areas are inside the nose and ear and right below the jaw. So onto our final stage, we're gonna add details onto our line art. Through the whole process, I'm just gonna follow the same tips I mentioned before. Thicker plane changes, thicker lines. I'm gonna make the outlines thicker and I'm gonna shade any shadow areas that I see. Those same tips over and over. So here I'm shading in a shadow area that I see underneath the eye. You notice that when you add the thicker lines and the shadow areas, it really adds more realism to your line art. So here I'm doing the eyebrow. For the eyebrow, what I like to do, I like to open another layer in for the details that I'm drawing now. Like for the hair details, I do that on a separate layer, so that when I'm satisfied with the line art, I can remove that boxy shape of the eyebrow that I see underneath, like I'm doing now. So I can just merge these two layers together, and so I can just work on one layer again. So just trying to get some nice shading in with my line art, just drawing thicker lines at the outline. And now I'm doing the details for the eye. I shade in the pupil completely because it's, black. And I'm adding a mid-tone for the iris because I'm kind of getting distracted with the eye details. The eye is just really fun to draw. You don't need to add the mid-tone in. It was really just a fun decision to do. So you can see I'm drawing a thicker outline for the edge of the iris. And you can see that the eye is really coming together now, just with those simple tips that I mentioned before. Adding just a little bit of shading at the edge of the eye to show that, okay, it's a globe, it's a sphere, it has depth. And just moving on to this plane change between the cheekbone and the cheek is very sharp. So I'm drawing a thicker, heavier line. And now onto the nose. Again, this line is a very sharp change between the bridge of the nose and the side plane of the nose, so it needs to be thick and hard. And I'm shading in the nostrils because it's an ambient occlusion. No light can get in there, so I'm completely shading them. Drawing a plane change for the bottom of the nose and a little circle for the highlight to show that the nose is kind of a spherical shape. The shading in the bottom of the nose there because it's a little bit of a shadow area. I'm adding in some plane changes that I didn't see in before, that I didn't have before in my sketch, because I feel like it's just adding more depth to the line art. You'll see these plane changes in the Asara head. I'm not making these up. These are from the Asara head. Just shading in the lip, just doing the line art details for the lips now. Constantly zooming out to getting an overall look. Because you want to make sure that the line thicknesses that you're adding is making sense with the whole drawing. Because you don't want to have different line thicknesses for different, like you don't want to have different line thicknesses for the same plane change. So like if a plane change is narrow, you want to keep the thin lines. If the plane change is like very drastic, then you want to keep a thick line. So I'm just shading in the ear now, the ambient occlusion for the ears. I'm really finished with this half of the face. Like the whole line art details took me about 40 minutes, and this is sped up to ×2. So I'm just making that line a little bit thicker because, as you can see in the reference, it's a pretty dark area. So now moving on to the other side of the face, starting with the eye, completely shading in below the upper eyelid, and now shading in the pupil. I'm really just repeating the same process I did for the other eye. I'm using like I mentioned before, I'm using the regular airbrush here. I'm using Krita. I'm using the program Krita and the default airbrush that they have. I didn't make any changes to its properties, nothing, just the same airbrush that they have. You can use whatever brush you want to, textured brush, a flat brush, whatever. It's up to you. I just like using the airbrush because I feel like it'll add just a little bit more depth to the line art. So just darkening those plane changes that I see around the eye, mirroring my sketch to see how it's looking. And I'm noticing that the eye is still looking a little bit weird, so I'm correcting it here. Eyes are something that I will constantly correct throughout my drawing, because it's what we look at first when we see a face. So to me, the eyes is like 50% of the whole drawing. Your eyes need to be correct. That's just my opinion. Now I'm doing the other eyebrow, again drawing it on a different layer so I can erase the eyebrow line art that I have underneath. So I erase it here, and then I merge the layers together. because I don't like working on multiple layers. It's just too confusing to me, so I try to keep my layers as minimal as possible. So just finishing up the eyebrow. Making it just a little bit thicker to match the other eyebrow. Because remember I said before that when you're looking at a face straight on, everything is pretty symmetrical. I mean, yeah, there is some asymmetry to every face, but for the most part, it's pretty symmetrical. So now just adding in a little bit of shading for the iris, just having fun with it. I might be getting too distracted by the eyes, but it's just so fun to do. Zooming out, just getting an overall look. So now I'm just gonna finish the ear up, shading in the same ambient occlusion areas that I did, same way I did in the other ear. It's the same tips that I'm following over and over and over again. There's no secret, no magic trick I'm doing. It's just I'm just following the same tips. Just shading in the shadow areas or ambient occlusions, making the outlines thicker. And then now I'm doing the side of the face. Again, remember outlines tend to be thicker. Like I'm repeating myself so much because it really is just the same things over and over again. Finishing off the chin now. Now here I add the other plane between the cheekbone and the cheek, because her face is kind of angular, so I want to make it that obvious in my line art. Because when you're drawing lines, you don't have, the privilege of shading in like light areas and dark areas to show form. You have to use your lines to show form. I'm trying some forehead circles, but I don't really like the look of them, so I don't use them. I don't think I keep them. And darkening the side planes of the nose, using liquify here to make the nose a little bit rounder. And I'm shading in the eyebrow, and I took it out. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to keep that. I do add some shading in later on near the end, but that's like a last minute detail kind of thing. We want to finish the line art detail, the other details first, before we get to shading areas like that. Because remember, we're just following step by step here. Just fixing the shape of the hair. I mean, just because we made our shape decisions earlier doesn't mean that we can't change it now. It's just easier if you make it before. Drawing thicker lines for the neck, because that's a pretty big plane change there. Here I'm adding some pretty thick lines for underneath the chin, because in the reference there's kind of a small shadow there. So I'm trying to make the line a little bit thicker, but I think I erased most of it out later on because I'm realizing that it's too thick now. It's too thick that it's distracting from the rest of the line art. So like since I realized that the lines I just drew were too thick, I'm trying to make up for it by making other lines thicker as well. Because remember, we want to be consistent through our entire portrait. And here I'm just adjusting those lines because I might be going overboard with the thickness now. So I'm gonna severely bump it down later on. Zooming out again. Thankfully, I think I put the extra darkening on a different layer because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep it or not. So all these extra heavier lines I'm adding is on a separate layer. So I can erase it out as I see fit. Like whenever you're making like drastic changes like that, you can always just put it on a different layer and see. You don't have to commit to anything, which is one of the beauties of digital art. You can just see it and, see if you like it. So I'm turning it on and off to see how it's looking, and I'm erasing a lot of it out, actually. Yeah, I just keep erasing most of it out because I do like the thickness, but I just think it's too much. So I still want to keep some of it. So now I'm doing the other side of the neck. Like making all the outlines thicker. And now onto the hair. So for the hair, I do the same thing like I did for the eyebrow, where I put the hair on a different layer, where I put the line art down on a different layer. So I can use the line art underneath and draw my details above it. So in the end, I'm getting rid of my hair line art. So I can erase the hair line art that I had underneath, because I just find that's an easier way for me to work. So here I've moved the hair to a different layer. So now I'm gonna work on top of it, decrease the opacity of the line art below, and then just draw on top. Just checking if my layers are correct, because boy, if you're on the wrong layer, it's a hassle to have to redo everything. So it's always worth it to just take an extra second and check that they're on the same layer. So now for the hair details, for the most part, I'm following the line art that I settled on underneath, but I'm just trying to be more flowy with my lines for the hair, because I'm trying to add volume to the hair strands. Just keeping my lines clean and simple. I'm just like, anytime I want to put a line, try a line, I do it. If I don't like it, I just take it out. It's easier to just try things, experiment. You don't know what you might end up liking. So it's better to just try the line and then take it out if you don't like it. So I'm just looking at it without the line art underneath to see how I like it so far. It's looking pretty okay. So I'm just continuing, drawing those tiny hair strands that she has at the front. I'm not drawing each individual strand. I'm just drawing it based on groups, like groups of hair. Because if you get caught up in each strand, it's that's more into the realm of realism drawing. And this is just line art for the portrait. You don't need to draw each strand to give the impression of hair. So like I'm trying to add some weight to my hair, making the lines kind of sag downwards with gravity, following, like wrapping around her head. Because remember, the head, the first shape that we drew with the Loomis head was a sphere, because most of the head is a sphere. So we're wrapping the hair around that sphere. Drawing those tiny hair strands at the back. And now onto the bun at the top. I can't see the rest of the bun in the reference, so I'm just kind of making it up, just finishing it as I see fit. I'm just trying to show that it's a bun by wrapping the hair around it. because you can't really see the details in the reference because a lot of it is in shadow. So I'm just trying to, make up those hair strands. You can just try like different hair strands in different directions. See how it's looking. Take it out if you don't like it. Like hair is just very easy to just have fun with. And now I'm drawing some lighter strands in to get just a little bit more flowiness to the hair. Zooming out again. So here I've completely removed the original hair line art that I had, and now I'm just darkening this layer so it's kind of matching the rest of the sketch. So zooming out, looking at everything. I think we're pretty much finished with the line art details. Yeah, I'm just trying the hair strands at the front. I end up not liking the hair strands at the front because I just thought it was distracting too much. I liked it better without the two big hair strands. So now I'm just making some final adjustments, checking the length of the face. I always have a tendency to make my faces wider than in the reference. So I'm just trying to adjust that. Just tiny changes now. Yeah, here is where I shade the eyebrows in just a little bit, just adding a little bit of gradient, just for fun. I'm just trying different gradients, seeing which one I like better. So I'm kind of liking that one. I think I make it just a little bit lighter. Yeah, I erase a little bit out here with the airbrush. And yeah, I think we're pretty much finished with the line art details. All I did was follow the tips that I mentioned before, and we've been able to come up with this. There's some tiny changes now. Just looking for anything else that needs fixing. And yeah, I think it's finished now. Okay, maybe not. Maybe just one more hair strand to make the image perfect. And I took those out. Okay, yeah, it's just try things, You never know what might stick, what you might love. Just try it. So okay, yeah, now I think we're finished with the line art details. So that's it, guys. This is the final line art for our portrait. I took a look at it like the day after and made some changes to it. I added some shadow to the left side of the hair because I thought it was looking a little too light. So I just made that side a little bit thicker and some very tiny changes. And yeah, that's it. I really hope you guys learned from this video. I had a lot of fun making it. If you followed along and drew a portrait, I'd really love to see it. So post it on Instagram and tag me at Shami Draws. Let me know if you would like me to do another video for drawing the side view of the face or how to draw the face at an angle. I really hope you found this video useful. Bye guys. Happy creating.